Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. I've seen a lot of comments from our viewers and subscribers asking about how I've built a real estate portfolio that's north of $10 million. And in this video, I'm going to give you my 5 principles as well as the 5 specific strategies that I use to build a real estate portfolio that provides me with tens of thousands of dollars of cash flow every single month. Welcome to our channel, everyone. This right here is a little bit of information about me. You'll learn how I was able to achieve my American dream, having started with nothing. And in this video, I'm going to give you all my secrets of real estate investing, my decades of experience in real estate investing, packed into a short 10 to 12 minute video for you. Let's just jump right in. I'm going to start with 5 principles, 5 philosophies, if you will, and then jump into 5 specific strategies. In fact, I have a checklist, and that checklist must be met for every single property that I invest in. Let's start with the 5 philosophies to begin with. The first philosophy is that I invest in out-of-state properties. I live on the East Coast. It's a very expensive community. And if I was to buy real estate in my community, I would not get the rent that would make sense for me to pay off the mortgage and then have some money left over. I have a very simple philosophy. The rent that comes in from my tenant should not only pay the mortgage, but there should be money left over in case I have a situation where the tenant needs to vacate the property and where I have some unexpected repairs for my rental property. Therefore, I invest in out-of-state properties. I invest in different states like Ohio, Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, and I have also invested in Texas and Florida. These are the states that I own single-family homes in: Ohio, Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, Texas, and Florida. And what's interesting is I've bought all of my single family homes sight unseen. And here's why. This is extremely important. I have excellent relationships with sellers in each of those states. So the second important principle is close relationships with the sellers in those states. I don't recommend that you just find somebody off the internet. Real estate is all about relationships. If you know someone, you can ask them, hey, do you know someone in another state? The best relationships are referral relationships. So if you ask around and you build your network, you can talk to your local realtor and say, hey, I'm looking to buy rental properties. Do you know someone who might be specializing in rental properties? You've got to continue building your network. And so close relationships with sellers are extremely important, because then you end up getting access to deals even before they enter the MLS. You get access to deals before anyone else has a chance to get them. This brings me to my third principle, essentially my third strategy in real estate investing. All the deals that I do are off-market deals. Here's what happens. I have relationships with sellers in different states. They know that I'm the kind of buyer that's going to close, and therefore I tell them that if you have a good opportunity, before putting it on the MLS, bring it to me. And if I like it and it satisfies all the 5 items on my checklist, you know I'm going to commit to the property. So therefore, I get deals. When they buy a house, even before a house goes into rehab, I get the deal, I commit to the property, and as long as my criteria are met, they know that they have a buyer on the other end. I know that I get the deal before anyone else. So it's a win-win for both sides. In short, I end up getting first dibs at really awesome properties. I get access to off-market deals, and I jump on those deals before anyone else. Let me actually give you an example of how this would work. Typically, a wholesaler buys, I'm just going to throw out an example, buys a single family home for $80,000. They spent $30,000 rehabbing the property. So their cost is about $110,000, but they are the ones who take the risk of putting in all the effort, overseeing the contractors, overseeing, the painting, this, that, and the other. Honestly, I don't get involved in any of that. I don't care for any of that. Now, once they put in $110,000, they want to sell the property for $130,000, $140,000, whatever the property appraises for. And by the way, the appraisal is an important part of my 5-step checklist that I'm going to get to. I'm the buyer at the other end, and I say, you know what? I'll pay the 130, the 140, because I don't want to deal with the repairs. I don't want to deal with the paint. I don't care. That's your headache. I'm the investor at the other end. I'll buy it for 130 or 140. You can make your $20,000, $30,000 profit. I don't care. You make your profit as long as it appraises. And I know that it appraises because I know the lender will lend based on the appraisal. This is very important. Lenders lend based on the appraisal. So one of my requirements is that the property must appraise. Now, as long as it appraises, I know I'm going to get the lender to lend, and I also need the property to be rented before I close. So the way the deal would work is they buy a wholesale property for like 80,000, they put in 30, 40,000, they sell it to me for 140, 150. I buy it for 140 or 150. I put down 25%, 75% is borrowed. But then by the time I close, it's already leased and I have a tenant in there paying $13, $14, $1,500 a month. So for me, I take the advantage of all the depreciation over time, and I get the cash flow from the tenant, which is going to pay off the mortgage and then have money left over. Now, the fourth aspect, which is extremely important, is local property management. I don't deal with repairs. I don't deal with tenant issues. I don't deal with evictions. I don't deal with finding a new tenant. Everything is handled by a local property management company. So what you need is not only good relationships with sellers, but you need a local property management company that manages all the properties. I have never in my life managed any of my tenants. I don't know who my tenants are. They don't know who I am because they deal with the property management company. And as far as I'm concerned, the property management company sends me a check every month after they deduct their property management fees. In case you're thinking, oh my God, I don't want to pay property management fees. I want to manage the properties on my own. You can do that if you want. It really depends on what your time is worth. For me, having a property management company is honestly, it relieves a lot of headaches. And I believe the property management companies, if they charge 7%, 8%, 10%, whatever they charge, they are worth every penny because managing a property can be a ton of work. So my recommendation would be, whenever possible, from the get-go, get a property management company. And by the way, having a property management company allows you to focus on the development of the relationships, finding the right properties, making sure you can secure the financing, being alert, if you will, about relationships with the lenders, interest rates. Those are the things that you really want to focus on, which leads me to my fifth point. I always do 30-year fixed loans. I don't do any, adjustable rate mortgages. I don't do 15-year mortgages. I want to depreciate the property over 27 and a half years, and I want to pay off the mortgage with tomorrow's dollars, which are weaker dollars. With inflation, remember, tomorrow's dollars are weaker than today's dollars. A dollar today will only be worth 50 cents of buying power 17 years from now because of the effect of inflation. So if you were paying off a mortgage, why not pay off a mortgage with tomorrow's dollars, which are weaker dollars compared to today's dollars? Therefore, I always do 30-year mortgages, and I want to drag these loans out as long as I can because I know that I'll be paying with weaker dollars. Remember, rents go up over time. And yes, property taxes and insurance goes up over time, but your interest rate, if it's fixed for 30 years, a majority of your payment is going to be almost identical. But if interest rates remain fixed over 30 years, and these days, even though interest rates are starting to inch back up, they are right in the 3.25% range. It's nothing. I believe that because inflation is at 2% and your interest rate is at 3.25%, you're paying off the loan with tomorrow's dollars, which are weaker dollars. And I believe at 3.25%, in 2 or 3 years, you're actually getting paid to borrow the money because the value of your dollar is reducing, but you're still making the same payment. So I believe that borrowing at 3.5%, even 4%, possibly even 5% is no problem because inflation itself is 2% a year and it reduces the purchasing power of the dollar. Now, let's go over my 5 criteria. These criteria must be met before I invest in any property. The first is a 1% rule. The rent must be close to 1%, if not 1% of the actual value of the property. So if the value of the property is $150,000, the rent needs to be close to $1,500 a month. The absolute minimum that I would expect would be 0.8. If the rent as a ratio of the value of the property is less than 0.8, I'm not touching it. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, how do you know what the rent is going to be and how do you know the tenant will be there? I'll get to that in just a second. My second point is that the property must be newly rehabbed. I want something that's brand new. I want a property that's freshly painted, new carpets, if necessary, a new roof. And all of these are the headaches of the seller. The seller needs to give me a property that is in pristine condition. That becomes the seller's headache. Now, this leads me to the third point. I will only close on a property if the tenant has already moved in. 10. I will never close on a property that is vacant hoping to get a tenant. For me, I tell the seller, hey, I'm going to buy, but you need to work with the property management company. And a lot of times the sellers actually have their own property management companies. But I tell the seller, I will buy the property, but I will only close after the tenant has moved in. This, by the way, even saves you the first month move-in fee, because I tell the seller that I will only close after the tenant has moved in, and I will not pay the first month's leasing fee. A lot of people make this mistake and they buy a property, it's vacant, then a tenant moves in, and then they pay the first month's rent to the leasing agent as a lease fee. The way I do it is it has to be leased and then I close. So in other words, if a leasing fee is applicable, it's paid for by the seller. So for me, these properties have to be cash flowing from day one. The fourth criteria is that the property must appraise. An appraised property protects the lender as well as the buyer, and it is essentially a way for the seller to make sure that the property is priced fairly. This is important. Let's say I sign a purchase agreement for a property at $150,000. I tell the seller ahead of time that it has to appraise. If it doesn't appraise, there are two options. Option one, you honor the appraised price. Option two, we can meet in the middle. But if you commit to a property at 150 and it appraises for 140, you've got to be able to have a chat with the seller and say, hey, you're gonna meet me in the middle, or it's gotta come down to 140, or I'm walking away. You need to have that discussion with the seller beforehand. A big mistake that a lot of buyers make is that they commit to a property, it under appraises, but because they were contractually obligated, they still went ahead with it. When you do enough deals and when you build enough relationships, you will have that rapport with the seller, where the seller will be like, oh man, it didn't appraise, sucks for me. All right, let's meet in the middle. That is the kind of relationship you want. And finally, the property needs to be in a good neighborhood, at least a B plus neighborhood. It's a technical term for real estate. I don't do B minus neighborhoods. I don't do C minus neighborhoods. I want neighborhoods where it's safe for families to walk, where it's safe for kids to run around and play. Even if I have to pay a bit of a premium for those properties, even if the rent is a little bit lower. But the trick is to find properties in B plus neighborhoods that satisfy all 5 of my criteria. So there you have it, everyone. On your screen right now, you'll see the 5 principles of real estate investing that I've used to build a portfolio well over $10 million. The first, out-of-state properties. The second, a close relationship with the seller. The third, off-market deals that I get first dibs at. Number 4, good, strong local property management. And number 5, a focus and emphasis on 30-year fixed mortgages. And to be honest, I don't think you should freak out too much about 3.25% versus 3.5%. I believe even if you have to pay up to 5%, maybe even 6% over time, it's well worth it, because inflation itself is 2% a year. I haven't even talked about the depreciation of properties and the tax advantages of single family real estate. If you want to learn more about that, let me know below. I'll cover that in a different video. And here are my 5 criteria for real estate investing. The 1% rule. The property needs to be newly rehabbed. The tenant must have moved in, the property must appraise, and it must be in a B plus neighborhood. That was it, everyone. I know this was a longer video than I originally anticipated. Thank you so much for watching. I want you to know I appreciate you. Please click the like button, please subscribe, please enable notifications. I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.